Right, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, that really, really helps us out. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a review as well. Again, it only takes you 5 seconds and it helps us out so much. And thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. Thank you. All right, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
Not too bad at all, Mark. Still here in my lockdown cupboard, still surviving.
Lockdown cupboard, as it will be forever known.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever revert it back to just being a normal junk cupboard. This little table I've wedged in probably has to stay here forever. But yeah, doing okay. This week's went incredibly quickly for me. So yeah, I think lockdown time dilation is in full swing. How about you? How are you getting on?
Weirdly, I feel the same. I felt as if I had very little time for gaming again this week, when in reality I should have more time than ever. And I don't know quite how things are working out this way, but it's upsetting me, Lewis, and I need to play more video games. What have you been playing, man? What have you been playing? So
basically all I've been playing this week is more of the Talos Principle, which I mentioned having started last week. Yeah, so rolled credits on it now, which was good. I was, relatively close, probably about 3/4 of the way through the game when I played it last week. In case you missed that, it's basically a sort of first-person adventure puzzle game. You go around solving little puzzles. There's a lot of kind of inbuilt half-cocked philosophy in it, which has its place. Sometimes it feels a bit too much, but the basic narrative that's underpinning the whole thing is fairly fun. It's essentially a big statement about consciousness, not 100 miles away from like Detroit Become Human, actually, that kind of idea behind it all. There's one comparison that I failed to make last week, which is actually completely vital. I think I talked a little bit about The Witness last week and similarities to that. It's actually way more like Portal. The puzzles are actually physically like Portal puzzles. It's, put a thing that connects 2 laser beams together on a box and make it move in a certain way or whatever, and that is so Portal as well. So if you like those games, you'll get something from this, absolutely. It's not as inventive or quite as fun as Portal is, but came on Game Pass with a free DLC package, so I'm moving on to play that as well, because it's a nice bit of easy couple of hours of fun every night just to puzzle away and find some cool solutions.
So do you still feel as if you're being slapped over the head with philosophy?
Yeah, a little bit. It builds it in too many ways. There's at the core of the whole thing, there's this interesting idea about choice and consciousness and belief and those kinds of things, and they could have kept that quite straight and narrow. And actually the way that I think there's multiple endings, and I got the main, the correct one to begin with, having then gone and checked what the other ones were. Having got through all that, I was like, there's actually quite a nice idea here. There's quite a nice statement. The way that you play and the actual point the game is making kind of dovetail towards the end, which is quite interesting. But there's just way too many lore documents in it that are drawing out how this idea was explored in ancient Egyptian philosophy and how it was explored in ancient Roman philosophy, and it's just kind of like, I don't need all of that. Just make your point and get on with it. So for me, that's not what the main thing is about. The main thing is just entering a puzzle space, solving that puzzle, leaving that space. Were
the puzzles good though? Were they Portal-worthy puzzles?
None of them that are as challenging as Portal or The Witness can get. I'll say that. There's none of them that I've had to walk away from and think, I'll come back to that later. Which most puzzle games, there's at least 1 or 2. Every single time I've entered a room to do a puzzle, even the harder ones, I've done it. It's not that challenging, but there's some nice, neat solutions, particularly ones where you have to get things moving in certain ways. There was one I did last night that involved the kind of pendulum effect that when it works, you're just like, oh, that's cool. It's really good that worked out like that. But none of them are overly challenging, which is, if you're not that averse to this type of game, that might be a good thing for you. You can jump in, you'll get some solutions, you'll kind of click into the rhythm of it. For me, it's been a solid game. It's not groundbreaking. I hope they make a sequel and do it pretty well, but it's a nice bit of essentially free fun from Xbox Game Pass for me. What about yourself, Mark? What have you been playing?
Just more Final Fantasy VII Remake, man. I've not actually, as I said, been able to play it that much this week, but man, it's just great. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm not going to sit here and gush about it again for the 3rd week in a row, but I absolutely love it. It is the perfect intersection of just childhood nostalgia and actually a really brilliant game and a really, really well done remaster in a way that I'm not sure that we've really seen a remaster be done, even with RE2, because the scope of Final Fantasy VII is just so much bigger. They've decided to break it down into these parts and what have you. It's just really, really good. It's really good. I totally adore this battle system. I really, really hope I really hope that Square Enix kind of take it forward into future Final Fantasy games or other games that they make or whatever. This dynamic battle system that you can continue to use menu-driven combat commands in, effectively, it's just great. It just works really, really good. I enjoy every single moment that I have with the game, to be completely honest with you.
Nice,
it's just that I've not had the chance to have many moments with it recently.
Does it feel like a game that progresses slowly? I understand that you're also playing it a little bit more slowly than you might normally do, but does it feel like is it rollicking along, or is it a bit of a slog?
It doesn't feel sluggish, man. No, I wouldn't say that it feels sluggish. Was like a few side quests and whatever that I had to do that felt a bit like not the greatest of side quests, but in actual fact you learn that it's teaching you about the game. Do you know what I mean? That weren't in the original game, by the way. So these are new for the remake. But it's teaching you about the game. Do you know what I mean? And it's giving you opportunities to interact with characters in ways that you wouldn't have done in the original game as well. Overall, yeah, I feel as if the game moves at like a good pace. I never ever felt as if, oh my god, let's get on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Like I've always felt as though it's been hitting all its beats, feeling good, progressing through the story nicely. As you pointed out, the reason that the story isn't progressing as fast as I want it to is because I've not been able to play it enough. It's not because of the game, you know. No, but it's been really good. Like I said, I'm not going to spend another 10 minutes gushing about it, but it's fantastic. If you've never played a Final Fantasy game, I would highly recommend this. It is superb. And if you have played Final Fantasy VII and you've not played this yet, good God, what are you doing? Go out and buy it.
Well,
it is superb.
You're probably
Absolutely
just waiting on your copy to arrive, which is...
Yeah, well, or potentially in this day and age, you might just be waiting for your copy to arrive. And I hope that arrives soon for you, listener. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for the news. All right, and news item number 1. The new Assassin's Creed game has been revealed, Lewis. The game is called Assassin's Creed Valhalla, not Assassin's Creed Ragnarok as speculated. The lead developer, Ubisoft Montreal, has tweeted that no less than 14 other studios worked on the project, which is a huge number, even for Ubisoft, which is kind of well known for spreading the work around, you know. However, as speculated, and as the name would suggest, you do in fact play as a Viking this time around, and it's set in the Dark Ages in England. Specifically, you play as Eivor, who can be either male or female, who is an invading Viking from Norway to the kingdoms of England. Ubisoft has confirmed that the game will also be a launch title for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. And watching the reveal trailer, I thought it looked good. I was interested in it. But what I noticed more was I felt that there was quite a significant tonal shift away from Origins and Odyssey. And this made it look a lot kind of grittier and heavier to kind of go along with that Viking theme, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. I just want to concur with you there that I thought the trailer was really good. Assassin's Creed, the whole series, that is one thing that they've always been great at. They're amazing at putting out really eye-catching trailers. I can remember scenes from trailers of games gone by, you know, probably much of a decade ago. So I totally agree with you. This looked dark, it looked intriguing. I thought the way that the kind of overlay of the voiceover and the images were kind of suggesting that there's this like accepted wisdom about what Vikings are, and then there's this reality of who they were, which I imagine is kind of what the game is going to explore. Overall, tonally, visually, way darker than Odyssey, which was this kind of Technicolor spectacle almost.
Yeah, you were shining in your gleaming armor and the Athenian sun. You know what I mean?
It was gorgeous
beautiful.
Blue ocean. Yeah, whereas this was like the mud and the dirt of Dark Ages.
Exactly. I was pretty impressed.
Got to say, it really does look good. I'm pretty sceptical about a lot of what Assassin's Creed does. I always come into it with a grain of salt.
I think everyone does, man. I don't think you're alone there.
Well, so they should. I mean, yeah, they've knocked 2 games out now that are really well received, and this is obviously continuing down that path. Way more RPG looking in terms of what it's trying to do, what the mechanics of the game are, and just way bigger. Like 15 studios involved in this. That's crazy. And so there's something there. Like if you've got into the series recently, you know what you're looking for, and that's there. But also this kind of grittier thing feels like a little connection backward to what the series maybe used to be a little bit more. So yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be a massive launch title for both consoles.
It certainly will. To be honest with you, it'll probably be a game that a lot of people would end up having anyway, just because it's a launch day game on a new system, you know? I mean, I'll probably end up with it if that's the case. You know what I mean? And I've not been into Assassin's Creed since the Ezio trilogy, for God's sake, you know? One thing from the IGN write-up of this, and IGN put together kind of 2 articles, one reacting to the trailer, and then they done like a sort of summary of everything that they knew as well. It was that they'd taken away from the trailer, which was really, really good. So we'll link to both of them in the show notes over at PlayersToo.com. But one thing that I am quite sceptical of, I've got to admit, was their emphasis on your settlement and building up your settlement,
right,
and the amount of things that you could do in your settlement. And that to me was cause for concern. In actual fact, over on the IGN article, game director Ashraf Ishmael said this:
"The settlement is a key feature of the game. It's quite grand in what we're trying to achieve with it. We want you to feel that this is your home, that you're building, that a lot of what you're doing in the game world is, at the end of the day, going to feed into the settlement so that it can grow, it can flourish. We have a ton of buildings that people can build. Each building comes with its own gameplay purpose. There's a lot of effort that's gone into making sure that players can feel like this home that they're developing is really meaningful to them. It's meaningful to the journey that they're on. The people that they invite to their settlement have meaning to them. Lots of events and things happen based on how you decide to kind of grow this place. It's really core to the experience of the game."
Now that's a big red flag to me. That's a big, huge, massive red flag. Do you remember playing Fallout 4 and all that settlement rubbish that me and you had to deal with when we played through that?
Good Lord, yes, I do.
Good Lord. I hated every moment of that.
Yeah.
It was just a distraction from what I wanted to be doing at every single moment. I was like, the back of my mind was worrying about our feckin' settlement, and what I really wanted to be doing was out killing zombies in the wasteland. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I don't want to be hamstrung by this place, you know, if I do decide that I'm going to play this game, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's the same principle as why I don't think that I would like Animal Crossing very much, is because all that busy work and growing stuff and making things look pretty and building a nice wee fence around your own wee bit of land and making your house look good and all that, it's just not for me, you know what I mean? I've not got anything against anybody that's into Animal Crossing, and half the world's into Animal Crossing, so I'm very aware that I am the outlier here. But in games like this, particularly like heavy story focused RPGs, I'm just like, why do we want this? I don't understand it personally. I really don't.
I agree. It's a similar red flag for me. I actually hadn't realised until reading through that statement in full there that they had said it's core to the experience of the game. Like, I hadn't realised.
Core to the experience.
Ubisoft are really leaning on this. Now, you mentioned the experience of settlements in Fallout 4. There was an experience of a settlement in Assassin's Creed 3 that is the moment that I decided that I was basically done with this franchise, because it was the most tedious, the most boring, the most gameplay upsetting thing that you had to do, because suddenly, despite the fact that you were supposed to be this assassin, I was kind of just this village dog's body who would carry stuff for people and physically carry a person in one point, as I remember, and I just thought, I'm not interested in this. This isn't the role that I'm playing here. And if any of this game kind of goes down that path of just busy work for the sake of busy work, I think that's a real problem. Hopefully it's going to feel more like, you know, something like Mother Base from Metal Gear Solid 5, where it's just things that are happening out in the world and your stuff is being shipped back to base in a way that you don't have to worry too much about, and you just have to make very basic decisions about, we want to spend all this resource to build a better armory, and that means I can get better weapons. If that's all it is, then I can live with that. But at the point where we have to start micromanaging people on the ground there and deciding where beds get placed, I remember that from Fallout 4. That was a fucking nightmare. That's too much.
Oh god, I haven't even forgotten about it. I think I blocked that out from my memory. Dear me. Yeah, I agree. I think when it gets into that micromanagement level stuff, that to me just is not what I want from a big RPG like this. I don't know about other people. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I don't want anything to do with that in a big RPG like this. If it's like Mother Base from Metal Gear Solid 5, which was very, very macro and you had to do basically the bare minimum and it would work itself out, basically, I would be happy with that. I'd be more than happy with that, in fact. But if it gets into that nitty-gritty stuff, that is when you really start getting bogged down and things become very bloated and things become very slow. And for me, that was the Ubisoft of old. Do you know what I mean?
Totally that.
For me, they seem to be taking steps away from that in recent years. And I really feel quite strongly that this would be a step backwards if they decided to follow through with it in that sort of way. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's this kind of breathing, living hub space that you duck in and out of, that you launch your ship from at the start of each kind of session, that's totally fine. Like, that kind of thing could even be quite fun, like upgrades and building that settlement out to feel like your thing. All that stuff can be okay, but anything that's really deep, anything that feels like it's the core experience of the game, I don't know. The core experience of the game is killing people, right? It's running up buildings and doing missions and killing people. It shouldn't be
being a cool,
building.
badass assassin. That is the key part of the game. Yes, I totally agree. Anyway, on to news item number 2. Geoff Keighley Lewis of the Game Awards fame has announced a 4-month-long digital games festival. Now, this games festival is called Summer Games Fest, which will run from May, or kind of right now, and will finish at Gamescom at the end of August. This is not to be confused with IGN's Summer of Gaming, which will take place in June. These have very similar names and are very similar things, which is unfortunate. So far, 2K, Activision, Bandai Namco, Bethesda, Blizzard, Bungie, CD Projekt Red, Digital Extremes, EA, Microsoft, Sony, Square Enix, Private Division, Riot Games, Steam and Warner Brothers are all confirmed to be participants, which is a lot of big names there.
Definitely
a lot of big names. I would say that the big player who is missing from that, though, is Nintendo, who have subsequently confirmed that they will not be doing their E3 presentation in June, or what would have been their E3 presentation in June. I don't think that we've got any sort of confirmation on when that will be yet, so we may be waiting a wee while to hear from Nintendo. But I think with the situation this year with the coronavirus and everything on, I think it's just knocked everyone for six. Keighley has described the Summer Games Fest as less of a single event and more of a, quotes, Google Calendar for industry digital showcases, game trailers, launches, in-game events and free digital demos. So less of a specific event and more of a platform, for me anyway, it seems, for publishers, for devs, for indies, for whoever wants to use it seems. And by the looks of things, a lot of the big boys want to use this platform, you know?
Well, absolutely, yeah. It seems to me quite a lot like it's a festival tag that different publishers can kind of take and use as they see fit. And so we're obviously seeing things like, you know, these bigger publishers are being attached. I wouldn't be stunned if Nintendo end up coming on board with that and getting involved with that branding, essentially, because it seems
over on gamesindustry.biz, who done a great article with Geoff Keighley about the announcement of this, Geoff Keighley actually expressed hope that Nintendo would come along eventually, but it was also brought up that they were probably the biggest name missing.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to me like it's going to be one of these things that anyone who's doing anything, it would be part of their normal plan. So if you're a publisher, you've just got your marketing plan for the summer, and now there's this hashtag and this logo essentially that you can attach to what you're doing, and that means gamers know that they can find out all the information about all of this in one place. And in some ways, it seems to me very much a direct E3 replacement in a funny way, because essentially, instead of knowing that all of this information from all of these publishers would come in this kind of 3 or 4 day window, they're saying it's going to come at a more leisurely pace between May and August, and we are going to hold it all in one place. You're going to know that you can find anything about upcoming video game news under the banner Summer Game Fest over the next few months. If it is that kind of thing, I mean, they've talked, the Google Calendar is a really nice way of putting it, and they've talked on their Twitter already about being able to set reminders for certain announcements and that kind of thing. Should be said that the website is going live today as we discuss this, so I think just the time difference means it's going to be live kind of as we're talking just now. So basically all of that means that as a gamer you can jump on and you can just find out the things that you want, and you can set reminders and keep up with the news, which is, I think, a really good thing, because a lot of this stuff would get lost in the mix otherwise.
What I was thinking about is if IGN are also doing their Summer Games Festival in June, which was also supposed to replace E3, quotes, and then a lot of these other publishers, particularly the big platform holders, Sony and Microsoft, are both like knowing to be doing their own things. It looks as if Nintendo's going to be doing their own thing as well. I just wonder how many big announcements we're going to get through this, you know?
I think that depends what we count as big announcements coming through this, because I think...
Well, a brand new game that you would expect to see on this stage at E3. Like, how many of them are we going to get through this, and not just through just picking Activision just do their own thing and announce a new game? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would they do it through the Summer Games Fest, you know?
I basically think that they won't. I don't think any publisher of that ilk will do that. I think what you will get is Activision doing their announcement for their new game, and Summer Game Fest going, keep an eye out for this reveal that's happening in 2 days, set your reminder for it, blah blah blah, and then they'll share it. Like, I think it's a bit of a marketing tool in that sense. In terms of,
so it's more of like a resource kind of
exactly thing. Or just like a gathering space, like almost like an old RSS feed of old, if you're of a certain age, like a place that will gather all this information into one Twitter channel essentially, and one website that, you know, you'll be able to link up to your own Google Calendar and that kind of thing. In terms of actual announcements coming through Summer Game Fest, I would like to see some smaller devs, some smaller publishers being able to do that. As you mentioned,
well, in the same gamesindustry.biz article, Geoff Keighley spoke passionately, I would say, about involving indie developers and giving them a platform and stuff like that. So it sounds as if they are working with that kind of developer as well. But what Geoff Keighley also spoke about was kind of the future of these events as well, and what he wanted to see from events like this going forward, or your E3s of the world going forward. And to him, this seemed to be the kind of thing that he wanted to be doing. And he spoke specifically about demos, which we had a long conversation about not that many weeks ago. And he was talking about trying to get players playing free demos of these new games like you would do at the show floor at E3 and through streaming services like xCloud and whatever. And he was talking about having playable trailers. I don't really know how that would work, but it sounds cool. Do you know what I mean? So I like the way he's looking at all this. Do you know what I mean? Like I like all those as ideas. And I know he does the Steam Summer Festival as well? Is that called the Summer Festival?
I think so,
which does like a lot of like free gameplay demos and whatever as well. So it would be cool to see that kind of thing. Like if we watch the unveiling of some spectacular new game and then they turn around and go, well, guess what? If you log on to Games Pass right now, log on to your xCloud account, you can go and play this. You play the first half an hour for free. On you go. Do you know what I mean? Like how cool would that be? That'd be fucking awesome.
Presumably that's got to be part of the future, right? Because as we've been talking about for months, all of these pivots away from what E3 traditionally was towards some sort of new digital future, even before the pandemic. The one thing that you couldn't resolve with that was how do you replace the experience for the fan on the ground who gets to, sit in on panels and go to the press conferences, and that's one part of it. But they also get hands-on time with games, and you just can't replicate that. So if we are getting to a point where you can stream stuff, that seems to be the easiest way to do it, right? People could immediately play it. A stream would last maybe an hour, but the gameplay lasts 10 minutes and then you get back out. I don't think that can happen now, though. I think that's much further down the line.
No. I think that would be quite unlikely. But I mean, free demos isn't unlikely necessarily. Like they might not be streamed, but if they go, look, if you go onto Steam right now, the first 10,000 people there get to play the game for free. Do you know
totally,
what I mean? Or for the first hour or whatever. You know what I mean? And then Steam crashes and then everyone gets angry, of course. No, but you know what I mean? Stuff like that, like getting the fans involved and making it a worldwide thing and whatever. That was always what Keighley was trying to say about E3 and why he walked away from E3. And in fact, I Am 8-Bit are also involved in the Summer Games Festival as well on the indie side, who also walked away from E3.
Absolutely,
which I think is slightly suspicious now. But I mean, fair play to them, man. If this is the future that they see, I respect that, because to be honest with you, it's the future I see as well. I think they're doing the right thing.
Well, that's it. It at least suggests that both Geoff Keighley and I Am 8-Bit had a vision that quite genuinely E3 wasn't fulfilling, because they both more or less said that. But it's so easy to read so much politics into all of these things and who's doing what and what's really going on behind the scenes. The fact that they've come back together for this and it looks like this sort of suggests that they genuinely did just think E3 is a bit of a dinosaur and we need to do something new and fresh. And I think this is a step towards that. I think we should also say, before anyone gets extremely excited about this, that it's essentially a first time and it might not work and it might be janky and there might be all sorts of issues with it, and we might come out at the end of August and say that was all a bit of nothing really, but it's cool that it's there and that it could be a really interesting resource.
Totally agreed. It's a platform for people to make awesome announcements. I love awesome announcements. I love the hype. And what I have to say about Keighley in that situation as well is that he was very candid in this article about the fact that this could very well be a one-off. This could be one and done, or it could come back next year, or he said it could be the whole year and it's just like a constant platform that people could always be using if it's successful. But he was quite frank about it. I don't know, it's just nice to see that level of transparency from people like this,
Definitely.
Anyway, could get some cool announcements. There's no reason not to be excited about it. Alright, and news item number 3. Xbox has revealed Xbox 2020, as in 2020 vision, but also the year, which will consist of monthly updates on Xbox Series X, new games and more. Xbox 2020 will run every month until the end of the year, starting with an Inside Xbox on May the 7th, which is the day this podcast comes out, so tune into that as well after you listen to this podcast, of course. And that Inside Xbox will cover the third-party games that are coming to Xbox Series X, including Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So if you like the sound of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, then tune into that because you'll get to see some cool gameplay, hopefully. And the announcement on the 7th will also be part of the Summer Games Festival, Geoff Keighley's Summer Games Festival. So this is kind of bringing the two first news stories together, weirdly. And it's also been confirmed that in June, Xbox 2020 will be part of the IGN Summer of Gaming as well. That's not been confirmed what that one in June is going to be about, but then the one in July is going to be about the Xbox first-party games and what's happening with them. And it's slightly ambiguous, but I think that could be part of the Summer Games Fest as well.
Yeah, I would imagine so, yeah.
So it seems as if Xbox are going for this odd sort of way of announcing things, in that they announced the console really, really early by previous year's standards. Then it's just been drip feeding information until we get to this point, and that they're actually formalising the drip feeding on a monthly basis.
Gotta know when your next
which is
drip's
very
coming.
strange. It's a very strange rollout in comparison to previous generations. You know what I mean? So, what do you think of all this? I can't help. I'm just going to say it. I can't help but think that Xbox are fucking geniuses about this, and I really like it all. I do.
What makes you say that? Like that? Use the genius tag?
I don't know. Just because it's always there. There's always something new. There's always something happening. Like we got the reveal, then we got all the stuff about the specs. Then we got to see some of their new games first as well, and then we got it confirmed that Halo Infinite, the big first party's coming there on launch day. And so far from PlayStation, we've got a logo and a controller. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel as if there's just so much more happening, it feels like, at Xbox. I don't know, I just think that their messaging around this gen has just been great. Like I really do genuinely think it's been really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? Is that just me or her?
No, I have kind of two things. I'm going to say a thing at you, which you're going to call me a Sony pony for, but there's one aspect of all of that, because you're right. Like the steady drip feed thing, it means that we're all constantly talking about Xbox. Right? It's always there. You always vaguely know what's going on with Xbox, and now we know when to look out for more, and we'll stop asking that question. I still think that the silence from PlayStation means whenever they do anything, if they so much as fart in the direction of gamers, everyone is going to sniff it. You know, everyone wants to know.
Well,
what they've got.
I don't deny that, because they released that logo, that logo on Instagram, and it broke records on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I don't deny that.
Yeah. When the DualSense was revealed, the place went berserk. So I still think there's a value of silence within these kind of promotional things. But having said that, yeah, you're right. Like Xbox are doing interesting things. They're keeping a lot of people who might not have bothered too much about what Xbox are doing talking about them by revealing stuff constantly. They are doing
definitely.
it in a slightly strange way though, because they did announce this thing for Thursday, the Inside Xbox reveal of some third-party games, before they announced Xbox 2020, which would then go on to kind of clarify some other plans.
Yeah, that was all a wee bit weird with tweets and stuff like that. But long story short, Xbox 2020, and that's what's happening.
Exactly, yeah. So now at the end of it all, we kind of know what's happening, and that's good. And yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see Valhalla on Thursday. It's almost certain we're going to see some Cyberpunk stuff on Thursday. I would imagine they seem to have a relationship going already.
Do you want to hear my dark horse?
Go for it.
Well, apparently there's been a wee Elden Ring leak. So if we get to see some gameplay from Elden Ring, I would fucking wet my pants.
Yeah, I was reading quite a lot about that the other day, actually. Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, that's the kind of thing. I don't think we're going to get too much in this. I think, as we kind of talked about briefly last week in relation to the suggestion that there might be an event for PlayStation in May, I think that a lot of this is going to be FIFA 21, Madden 21,
I would agree.
All the stuff that we expect to be seeing, because there's not been that much announced yet, and I don't know how many games are going to want to announce like this.
But that plays better for Xbox, because an Xbox article about this, which again we'll link to in the show notes at PlayersToo.com, they also confirmed in that article that they will be confirming more games that utilise their cross-gen smart delivery feature. So if they are mentioning current-gen games, then what they are actually saying to players is that, see that current-gen game you've got, you can play it on Xbox Series X with smart delivery, and you can get the new shiny singing or dancing version on the Xbox Series X. You know what I mean? Whereas PlayStation can't play that card because they've not confirmed that they're doing that, and we don't even know if they are doing it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, again, down the road, I'm sure will announce things, and if there's a FIFA 2021 trailer on Thursday during the Xbox event, there's no reason to think that Sony won't show that as well, depending on the marketing deals or whatever. But yeah, it's a good thing for Xbox. They're getting out ahead of all of this. They are telling us what's going to be available and how it's going to be available. By creating the separation between third party and first party, they're really kind of making a statement about how good their first party stuff is going to look. If they're turning that into, if they think that can stand on its own, presumably with Halo, presumably with Hellblade, we don't really know a great deal more than that at the moment. But what they're saying is, we are confident here that this stands on its own, doesn't need the padding of all the third party titles you're excited about. We're going to really sell you this console at that point. So the next couple of months are going to be massive. Yeah,
no, they've got a lot of interesting studios under their belt now, so I'm very interested to see what games they're going to pull out. Very interested. All right, and finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout outs. Shout out number 1 is the beginning of the month, which means free games. Free on PlayStation Plus is City Skylines and Farming Simulator 19, and free on Xbox Games with Gold is V-Rally 4, Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor, and Sensible World Soccer and Overlords 2 on the 360. So, not the greatest games this month.
Fairly
with all the will in the world.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah, the PlayStation games have been absolutely stellar of late, and I heard that there was a little bit of blowback about City Skylines and Farming Simulator. But to that, I would just say, calm down, ladies and gentlemen. The games recently have been absolutely banging.
Yeah.
They need to have a bad one every now and again, you know what I mean?
It's just that balance thing that bothers me. Like, why not put one of those games with something more interesting, you know? But it's horses for horses, you know.
To me, they're both very PC-focused games.
Totally.
Alright, shout out number 2. Streets of Rage 4 came out this week, currently sitting at an 84 on PC and Xbox and an 82 on PS4. And folks seem to like it. Like, it seems like a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems as though they've actually made a Streets of Rage for the 21st century. It seems really, really good.
A lot of positive stuff coming out from it. To be honest, I hadn't been following the kind of release of Streets of Rage at all.
I had basically assumed that this game was going to be terrible.
Well, yeah, I think we probably talked about it at the time, and I don't remember either of us being particularly excited. As much as, you know, I certainly like the old Streets of Rage games as much as the next person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a lover of them by any stretch, but yeah, like I think it's cool that they've managed to update this and make it feel relevant and playable and good fun for the modern age. Sounds like it's really short narratively, but there's a lot of kind of reasons to replay it and a lot of different modes to try out and that kind of thing. I think there's couch co-op and online play, which is, again, it's taking an old formula and it's just bringing some modern gameplay stuff to it. So I think it's really cool. It's on Game Pass, which means I might try it out just now, but I'd be quite keen on us playing it together when this lockdown is over. And
yeah, that'd be awesome.
I think
that'd be well awesome, man. I'd be
good fun to do that. Yeah,
it seems really good. I'd be fully game to play it. I always like it when a game comes out and I'm surprised by it. You know what I mean? I'm surprised, like, oh, they've absolutely nailed that. You know, like I read several reviews that said, oh, this is now the best Streets of Rage. Do you know what I mean? Like mechanics wise and being able to play it. I know that people will always have that love and that nostalgia for those original games, but I hate using objectively when it comes to reviews. But it's kind of, they're trying to say that this might be objectively the best.
Yeah.
Which is great, which is awesome, which is exactly what they need to do, and they nailed it. And fair play to them.
Particularly good when a game surprises you by being so good when it is part of like an old series like this, where there's so much potential for a huge flop and a lot of fan disappointment.
God, yes. Well, it's like I said, when they announced Streets of Rage 4, I was like, oh, that's weird that they're doing another one of those. I bet it's terrible, and it wasn't. So great. Yeah. I mean, good for them. I like to see people succeed, Lewis. Alright, shout out number 3. The Last of Us Part 2 has gone gold, Lewis. It's gone gold. It's finally happening. This was announced by Neil Druckmann on Instagram. So it looks as if they're going to make the June 19th release date, which was their third pushback of the game?
I think so, yeah, the third date that they've got.
But it looks as if they're going to make that, which is good. It has also been announced on Twitter that there will be a new gameplay trailer on the 6th of May, which will be yesterday, if you're listening to this podcast on the day that it comes out. So you now know more about The Last of Us than we do. And that'll be at 3 p.m. UK time. If you missed it, go and check it out, because I'm sure it will be awesome, because it's The Last of Us and it's awesome. And I'm very, very excited about it, Liz.
Absolutely.
What do you think we get from that trailer?
Have they said if it's a story trailer or a gameplay trailer? Surely we've got to start getting some gameplay now.
I think so. I mean, we have seen gameplay, man. We've seen gameplay at E3 a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but we're so close to it now that we really need some substantial stuff, I would have thought, rather than a launch
To be
trailer.
honest with you, Lewis, when I saw that they were doing this trailer, I was kind of a wee bit like, don't need it. It's cool. Like, game was supposed to be out by now. It's fine. Don't need it. We're all buzzing for it. It's been in the news all over the place. Not always for the best of reasons, but it's been in the news all over the place. Like, it's in the zeitgeist here, you know? We don't need this. It's fine. Just leave it.
They'll be doing it partly just to put the real release date at the end of the trailer, I imagine, for the people who aren't following this week to week. You know?
Actually, well, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I can see, like, from a PR kind of marketing perspective, that's probably quite a good thing to have, actually.
Just a PSA, though, if you do go and watch that, avoid the comment section of wherever you watch that trailer, because it was absolutely going to be full of spoilers.
Yeah. Also, just kind of following on from something we were talking about last week, so we spoke a lot about The Last of Us Part 2 leaks that happened last week, and we had a big discussion about leaks and everything, but it actually has been confirmed by Sony that the persons responsible for leaking The Last of Us Part 2 were not associated with Sony and were not associated with Naughty Dog, because last week it was widely speculated that these leaks were kind of retaliatory action by someone in Naughty Dog for poor workplace conditions, the culture of crunch, whatever. But as it turns out, in actual fact, that wasn't correct, and these people were kind of separate from Sony and from Naughty Dog, you know. Always good to fact check yourself. All right, shout out number 4. And speaking of news I'm kind of okay without having, we're getting some Cyberpunk news in June the 11th.
So you're saying you don't want this either?
Well, let me come around to it. So the Cyberpunk Twitter account has just put out a message saying get ready, and then a picture which says Night City Wire June 11th. Now, I don't know what this could possibly be. Again, just more gameplay, maybe a wee bit more about the story. Either way, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm not saying like, bad trailer or anything like that. I'm just kind of like, I'm fine. I'm definitely going to buy this game. Everyone is buzzing for this. Everyone definitely thinks this is going to be the game of the year. You don't need to sell this to me anymore. I'm good. I just don't think that we need it. Like, I don't want an excuse to be not excited about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't want something to be stupid in it. Not that I don't have faith in them, but there's only so much beating over the head with trailers and ads and Keanu Reeves I can take, you know what I mean?
But it's interesting you say that, like that oversaturation thing is interesting.
Oversaturation, man.
Because
yes.
the more we get of this, the more likely that one note within it all is going to make you go, oh, I'm not so keen on that, and I hadn't thought about that before or whatever. So I do get that. I suspect this is going to be similarly like a monthly thing that they're just going to do until release, where we get a wee bit of story or a little bit on gameplay or a bit on a character or whatever,
perhaps. All right, shout out number 5. The UKIE has announced a Games for Carers scheme here in the UK for NHS workers during the coronavirus pandemic, which is very cool.
Yep, it is extremely cool. Yeah, this is just a wee shout out for anyone in the UK who works in the NHS or knows someone who works in the NHS who might not have heard of this. 85,000 games, Mark, are being made available across all platforms, consoles.
Lord, man. I didn't realise it was that many.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
Huge amount of games from all of the major publishers, a lot of the major developer studios. It's really cool. All you need is an NHS email address to get signed up for it. I don't have one, so I can't see what all of the games are that are there. But yeah, if you know anyone who's interested in gaming, who's involved in the NHS, who's obviously having an absolutely shit time just now and could use something to de-stress with at the end of the working day, tell them about this, get them to jump on it. If you just search Games for Carers, you'll get all the details. There is a URL for it, but it's kind of complex, but we'll stick it in the show notes on PlayersToo.com as well. And just a shout out as well, it's a Scotsman, one of our very own, who came up with this idea, a journalist called Chris Scullion. So between him and the UKIE, they got together and made this happen, and I just think it's really cool, and I wanted to make sure we spoke about it.
Yeah, very cool indeed. And if you do know anyone or you yourself are involved with NHS, I would definitely take advantage of that, because that is super fucking cool. All right, and on that happy note, I always feel as if we end on a downer, Lewis, but that was awesome.
That was a good one, yeah.
That was a good one. I like it. And with that, Lewis, keep the good times rolling. Time for a beer, and then we will be back with Topic of the Week. And we are back with Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is our play-along of Telling Lies, Lewis. This is the second solo game by Sam Barlow after Her Story, which we played last month. It is very much in the same vein as Her Story, in that it sees you, the player, searching through a lot of FMV video to try and uncover the story, to find out what's going on, basically, and you're just kind of left to your own devices to do that. However, in terms of scope, this feels a lot bigger than Her Story. There's a lot more characters, whereas in Her Story it was just her. The main character is David, who is an FBI agent who is sent on an undercover mission to infiltrate a potential eco-terrorist group called Greenstorm. And then basically the three women in his life, which are his wife and daughter, I guess. His wife is called Emma, who you also see in many of the videos, and his daughter is called Alba, who you also see in many of the videos, both of whom he leaves at home as he has to go on this undercover mission and spend many, many weeks away from them. Ava, who is the girl who is supposed to be his way into the inner circle of Greenstorm, but shock horror, they end up being romantically involved. And Michelle / Melissa / Maxine, depending on when you meet her in the game, who is a cam girl who David pays to have conversations with, but he also kind of falls for.
Has some sort of emotional connection
I don't really know.
to, I think we could say, yeah, there's something there between them. I don't know if I would go as far as saying that he's in love with her, but she represents something for him, which I guess we can get into in a little bit.
Well, Lewis, what did you think? Just overarching question, what did you think?
Yeah, overall, so I just finished Telling Lies earlier today, so it's all very fresh, and I've still...
Yeah, literally, 3 hours ago?
Something like that, yeah, I guess like 5 hours ago now, yeah. I played it pretty quickly today and started very late, really. Yeah, overall, I liked it. I think it's a better story, or a more full and interesting multi-layered narrative than Her Story was. However, I think it's a worse game. That's my opening gambit.
Okay. I think I agree with you in that it's a worse game than Her Story. It's not a bad game, and I think we can both agree that it's not a bad game, right? However, I also think that the story is easily weaker.
Do you, right?
Than Her Story. Easily weaker. I can't remember who I once heard speaking about video games and speaking about video game development, and they were speaking particularly about open worlds, right? And in gaming at the time, I think the Assassin's Creed Origins had come out, so it was kind of that sort of time, where the map was just like huge. And he was talking about how game developers are like obsessed with making like these like gigantic worlds that are 40 miles wide and an inch deep, and what he was talking about at the time was making a game that was like the size of like a street but like a mile deep in terms of its content. And that's what I feel Telling Lies is to Her Story. Like, I feel that Her Story is an incredibly narrow view of something that tells quite an interesting story, I thought anyway. Whereas Telling Lies is taking that really great concept that Sam Barlow had in Her Story and exploded it so big that in actual fact the depth of the story and the depth of the characters to me again was like an inch deep and not a mile deep. You know what I mean? Like I felt in Her Story. This game was still made on a bigger budget obviously than Her Story, like without a shadow of a doubt, but probably still on a relatively small budget, and I don't think that he got to tell as much as he perhaps wanted to. I don't know, the story to me, there was no suspense in it. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't like, oh, and now what happens?
Yeah.
It was always like, oh, that happens, and then this happens, and then, oh, then that happens, then, okay, then this, then that, and then we're done, and then that's fine, and then we all go home, and it's cool. Whereas in Her Story, I felt as if I was like, oh, shit, oh, that's changed things a bit.
Yeah.
And oh, that new piece of information is really changed things again, and oh, that's made a total revelation about these last 3 things that I've listened to. Whereas I think I only ever had one moment like that in Telling Lies.
Right.
Well, how do you feel about the story?
I think that's
just
really
taking
interesting.
that.
I almost think that we're not a million miles away from how we actually feel about it. But to me, and yeah, like again, both games great, both stories great. I don't want to take anything away from them, but you know they do vary. To me, it feels like Her Story was, like you said, a very well told, tight story, which is essentially a straightforward narrative line with a big twist in the middle of it, and it has its ending. And that's kind of the big surprise, or whatever. And he uses the gameplay to mask a lot of that. And what I think here in Telling Lies is that you've got, I think, a bigger, a deeper, a richer story, one that is absolutely like less predicated on shocks and twists, but the kind of thing that if you took it and drew it out as a full story and turned it into like a Netflix series or whatever, it would really work. It would be a story of a man and his relationships and this job and environmentalism and the politics of it all.
But that's the thing, man. I mean, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head here. Like, so I think that we are very close in what we're saying about this, because I think that this would make a fucking brilliant Netflix series.
Yeah.
I think it would make a great Netflix series. I do not think that this story is particularly well suited to a video game. I understand that it's more well suited to what Sam Barlow is trying to do in a video game, but it's still, I don't think, particularly suitable to a video game. It felt to me, right, so getting into the sort of nitty-gritty now, like getting into the actual bits and pieces of the game, the videos were too long. All of the videos were too long, every single one of them. In Her Story, all the videos were, I don't know, between 10 seconds and 3 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, most of them were under a minute, I think, pretty much, yeah.
But I would say most of these videos were over 5 minutes, most of them. And a lot of the time, because in the game, you're always listening to one half of a conversation. You're always listening to one half of a conversation. And David's like the link, so he's either speaking to his wife, he's either speaking to Ava, who's like the eco-terrorist quotes, or he's either speaking to the cam girl or his boss or something, basically. So he's always like the common link. You're always only hearing one side of these conversations, which in a 7, 8, 9 minute conversation, which some of them were, and a lot of that time is just watching someone listen to someone else, which isn't great. And you can fast forward through these things, right? You can fast forward, and I know that you did a lot of that.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I know that you did a lot of that. But to me, it was just a bit fucking boring.
Yeah.
Like it just was. You were looking at someone staring into a camera. Do you know what I mean? And at certain points, I was just like, did this video have to be all of this? Like, did we have to have both these sides of the conversations in one big strung together video? Like, why couldn't we have had that small snippet from his video where he was speaking, then the other snippet from the other person's video where they were speaking, then you just had like more snippets, do you know what I mean, rather than having to listen to this very, very long conversation about nothing.
I mean, I want to just jump in there and say that like that's the thing for me as well, that some of them are too long, absolutely. Some of them involve way too much silence from the thing that you're watching directly.
So much silence.
But then on top of that, there's clips that, as good as they are for building the world and the depth of the characters and to make you really understand what's going on with these people, you know, there's clips, lengthy clips of David telling his daughter a goodnight story, for instance, or other things like that. Two people recounting a story that we already know to each other at length, and it's not really serving the central like mystery of the game or whatever. And there's times when I'm watching that, just going like, I don't have 10 minutes for this. Like, there's no way I've got 10 minutes for this. It's certainly not 10 minutes patience.
Well, exactly, and that to me was the most disappointing part, because the first few videos that I watched, I think one of them was like a minute or so, and I was like, right, okay, fine, this is all her story all over again. You're still searching through a database, you still only get the first 5 search results. It's identical in terms of mechanics, basically. It's identical in terms of mechanics. However, the actual FMV videos that you're watching, though, it's quite difficult sometimes to watch them, I honestly found. I was sitting there watching David watch me, basically, and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I just sat here watching this guy? So again, I eventually got to the point where I was like fast forwarding, but then you get and then the subtitles pop up, and then you're like, oh no, reverse back a wee bit. And it has all the actual flaws of properly rewinding like a tape, because there's no jump along bar at the bottom. Like, you have to scroll through it like an old analog tape, and there is no start from the beginning button. You have to scroll all the way back like an analog tape at quite a slow speed, I would say.
Oh, absolutely a slow speed. And none of that really makes any sense, because you're not watching tapes. This isn't her story, which was...
it's not tapes. It was set in 2019 or something.
Yeah, it's like all taking place from an external hard drive plugged directly in a computer. So
it could have been fucking VLC.
Well, exactly. It
was ridiculous.
It should have at least had the kind of functionality of something like that, which obviously changes what the game would be a bit. But I totally agree. Like, that is, for me, the biggest letdown of it all was that it just... Even after watching the first few, I was like, oh, this is interesting. There's some interesting characters here. I wonder what's going on and find out this thing, whatever. And then after a wee while, I was just like, God, this is just taking forever. And there's so much of this just watching the same footage with silence, you know?
Do you know what I felt as well? So when you finish the game, you get an ending, and it's basically to do with how many videos you've watched by any specific person. So if I'd watched more of David and Emma's videos, I would have got Emma's ending. If I would have watched more of David and Ava's videos, I would have got Ava's ending. However, I got Maxine's ending, who's the cam girl. And the reason for that, right, is because I ended up, I don't know that you're going to make a joke about watching a cam girl. I can see it in your eyes. But what I thought the whole thing was is that David was infiltrating this eco-terrorist group. His boss was kind of on at him. There was a bunch of stuff happening with his wife as well. And I was just thinking to myself the whole time, right, so what is her link to this? What is the cam girl's link to this eco-terrorist group? And the resolution to that is that she is completely inconsequential with the story in every single way. And I don't massively know why her character is there.
Yeah.
Despite watching nearly every single one of the
videos, you must have, I mean,
that she was in.
It should be said there's less of her than the other characters, but yeah, there is still quite a lot there. I think she's there from a narrative perspective because she represents the only person in the whole game that David can be entirely honest with, and is honest with, I think, other than his actual name.
But the point is, right, is that he's supposed to be an FBI special agent, right? She has already admitted to him, so this is getting out deep into the story now, right? She has admitted to him, just off the cuff, right, that she records all her camming sessions. Everything that she does is recorded. She just offered that information up there. But despite that, he divulges information about who he really is, about the fact that he's undercover, about Ava, about his wife. And I was just like, what world is this man suddenly living in? This covert undercover operative is bearing his soul to this cam girl. And I understand how that could have been done well. But to me, it was just nonsense. It was ludicrous.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I think it's an important thing to have this representation of him. Like, that's when we see how difficult he's really finding all of this. And there's a clip that I remember where he's talking to her, where he kind of just comes on the line and he's like, my marriage is collapsing, my girlfriend is pregnant and I'm going to have to leave her as well, everything's shit. And I think he's covered in cuts and bruises.
David gets Ava pregnant.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah. So, and so, like, for that element of it, I think it's quite useful that there's this external character, from a gameplay perspective, it helps us fill in a lot of the blanks because you get confirmation from him of what's kind of really going on. But I do agree, like, there's a certain amount of all of that stuff, and I actually want to take this to another part of the game which didn't make a lot of sense to me either, which is that, like, you just mentioned there that he's this FBI agent, and essentially why is he being so stupid? I can't understand from the perspective of who we're playing as really what the hell is going on. I was left a little bit cold by the ending because it sort of felt like we'd been introduced to the character within the videos. Now we see what they're kind of doing here, and there's this element of like we're leaking information that the FBI don't want to get out. I couldn't really work out why any of that was happening, or really, maybe I just missed something. Well, quite literally, maybe I missed an important video which would have explained it all. But when it finished, I was sort of thought, what was the purpose of what I was doing during all of this? You know?
Yeah, so you are often watching David have conversations with various people, basically. However, you actually play, quotes, as Karen Douglas, who is actually David's, like, field supervisor or something like that. So my thoughts were, why wasn't she the person who could have been the cam girl character? Like, why couldn't he have divulged his life, his truths, his actual truths to her and not to this random cam girl? Like, I'm not going on about it like because the character's like a cam girl or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with that. And I actually think that part could have been done really, really well, but I just never got anything from that at all. And the resolution of that with the cam girl as well, like, basically David loses his mind and hunts her down, and she shoots him in the leg in our home camming studio thing. It was all just a bit bizarre, and he was getting his ex FBI mate to like hunt her down and shit, and I was just like, this has got wild now suddenly, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I didn't know why Karen, the character that you're playing, I didn't really understand her motivations clearly either. So if there was a video that explained that, I have missed that as well. I have to admit, because I wasn't massively clear what her motivations were. It seemed as though she was looking through all these videos to leak them potentially, or get them for someone, and then she then destroys the laptop that you're on watching these videos, the fictional laptop, and then just kind of leaves, runs away from the FBI, goes up to the roof, has a cigarette, and roll credits. You know what I mean? And I never really understood what she was doing, because I think she was only in one other video.
I think she's in two. There's a video that you see her speaking directly to David, you know, just like a normal cam session that we've seen, and then there's the video where she interrupts a meeting that he is having with the organising unit or whatever they're called, that Ava and Eric and others are part of. And so she's effectively there at that point to extract David because he's not listening to the order to be extracted. By the end of the game, that she's no longer working for the FBI, but there's no indication as to why that would have happened or any of it.
I must admit, if that is explained within the game, or if that is explained at all, I've not read about it, because I did a bit of research into the game after I finished it. It is not explained very well in the game either. I didn't really understand her character. I've got to be frank. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to say? I thought that by far the best storyline, to be completely honest, was probably his and his wife's.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I find that quite intriguing, because the backstory between him and his wife is that his wife was seeing this previous boyfriend who was like abusive. Then she met David and then fell for David, and then the two of them started being together, but the ex-boyfriend, the abusive ex-boyfriend, bothering her with calls and things like that, and said that he wanted to come round and he wanted her back and blah 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 blah. But David, being the FBI agent man, one night sees him go into the girlfriend's apartment, Emma's apartment, and basically, long story short, he ends up shooting him there, and the two of them watch him die, despite the fact that Emma is a nurse and could have helped them. So that was dark, but I just thought that there was a very interesting story in and round and about that.
Totally,
you know what I mean? Which I also felt as though wasn't explored enough, and I felt as though the fact that Emma also started having an affair while David was away, and while David was subsequently having an affair for work, or was he, kind of thing. Well, obviously not, because he ended up falling in love with Ava and getting her pregnant. But he still continues to like lie through all this, and I suppose this is the headline, right? Telling lies. But I don't know. Like, there's something so telling in his character about the fact that he just continues to lie and lie and lie through all this, despite the fact that he's so much worse than what she's done.
I mean, he's completely lost as the game goes on. He's fully lost in the work, lost from his relationship with his wife. To reel back to kind of where I started, like, that is why I think it, in some ways, is a more interesting story. When you take all of those things, there's so much going on, layers of intrigue in the history of his marriage. Then you've got even the dementia plot line with his mother-in-law, and then
but none of it's explored. I'm not saying it couldn't be a great story. It could be a fantastic story. I think that if Sam Barlow just sacked the video games and just done a Netflix series of that with those actors, oh man, we could be on to a real winner. But like I don't know. I just wanted more from everyone. You know what I mean? I just wanted more. Even the guy Harry, who's like his friend in the FBI, who he sends to hunt down Maxine, the cam girl. Like I wanted to know more about him and stuff. Like it's even things like that. His boss, who you don't really see very much of. Yeah, exactly. Is even his boss, who you don't see very much of. I was like, I want to know more about this guy. Like, what are his motivations? He was speaking about the fact that he'd never lost a guy. Don't you be the first one, David? Kind of thing. Like, come back to us and whatever. And he's obviously like this seasoned guy. I don't know. Like, I just wanted to know more about everything.
It's really interesting that you say all that, Mark, because I mean, essentially what you're describing is the limitation of the form, because you can only be told as much as those characters would naturally say to each other over a video call, and so loads of it is just left in the background. I mean, even the way that we get the full picture of the history of Emma and David and the ex-partner, whose name escapes me right now. The way that the
ex-partner was Paul.
Paul, that's right. The way that gets told to us is in a really contrived way with like dolls and figures.
But again, that scene, that felt unnatural because that's not something someone would do. Someone would not describe a scene from your past with your kids' dolls. Do you know what I mean? That's bizarre. That's really weird. That's a weird fucking choice. And that did feel contrived because it isn't a natural thing that someone would have across like a video chat on the internet, you know? But I think that's got to be the creative decision though. Do you know what I mean? That's got to be, that decision has to be made to make it more concise. And maybe that's why I feel that her story made it so much better, because that all felt as if that were things that someone could have said in this format. Do you know what I mean? None of it felt contrived. Although not much of it felt contrived in telling lies either, but maybe it just couldn't offer me as much information as I wanted from it. The setting of her story as well was like an interview. It was a situation where you were supposed to be divulging information, totally. You know what I mean?
And it's a direct one-to-one in her story. That's the other thing. It's someone asking a question and getting a response. Whereas in this, I mean, there's a whole sequence of clips where David and Ava are just sort of reciting a movie to each other and stuff like that. And it's like it's there for colour. It's there for character and to flesh the thing out.
It's so long.
It's so long, and I think you're totally right in that there's a lot that the game can't do, doesn't get on to doing or delving into, that personally I would have found really interesting to know, but it's just, it can't be there. And so because of all of that, it's just, if you took what the story actually is, lifted it out of the game and just wrote it all down, you'd be like, this is really interesting and clever. And I do want to say as well, like, really well acted. I think this game is way better acted than her story was.
Really well acted. Really well acted.
But just overall, it's just missing something fundamental somehow.
I agree. I totally agree, and that's what I mean. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, it's an inch deep. I don't know. It just doesn't give me enough. And I don't really know why, because like you said, like, the story is more complex in itself, but the character on the screen isn't giving me enough. Like, I want more from them that I can't get, and maybe that is a limitation of the form. I feel as if with her story, Sam Barlow was onto like a really good idea, a really intriguing, interesting way to gamify a sort of traditional storytelling, if you want to put it that way, like in a movie or whatever, or in a TV series. And I thought he was really close to something great. But in actual fact, I almost think that this was a step in the wrong direction. I enjoyed the conciseness of her story. I enjoyed the way, although you were left to your own devices and you could find out anything in any order, you chose the way that the story led you down certain paths and told you the story it wanted to tell, the way that Sam Barlow wanted to tell it, despite you having this freedom, you know? Whereas Telling Lies felt a lot more random because there was just a lot more stuff that you could possibly search. There was just so much more scope there, and I really think that game would have benefited hugely just by tightening that scope. Honestly, see if this were a story between David and Emma or David and Ava, and then you never see anyone else, I think that this game would have been much better, to be completely honest with you. Like just cut it down to those two characters or something, you know what I mean, rather than involving all these other people and all these ancillary people on top of that. I don't know, just felt as if it got too much. You know what I mean? It got too much for the form, and I think we've almost through this conversation hit the nail on the head. It got too much for the form.
Absolutely, yeah. Just to really quickly add to that, like if they had cut it down to just David and Ava, I think it would have worked perfectly, because you could have just had one clip that isn't of them come in at the end and explain it all. You know, you would have believed that he was just part of this group, and then it would have been revealed towards the end what was really going on, and that could have worked so well.
Yeah, and they had a wife and a family and
Yeah,
and blah blah blah. Yeah, imagine that.
Like
That'd be a fantastic
imagine
reveal,
the penultimate clip that you get is Emma phoning him, and then suddenly the whole game goes, oh Christ, what's actually been happening here?
Yeah. Also, I didn't like the fact that everyone's ending, and I don't know if you watched the ending. So there's 6 endings to this. So there's really only 3, and then you can get like extended versions of those. But by extended, it's like an extra 5 to 10 seconds. It's not very much. But also, I didn't like everything was just very neat and tidy and lovely little bows, and everyone got on with their lives, and everyone was a great human being after David, and that was that. And it was just all a bit nice. Do you know what I mean? It fell a bit flat because everything was just resolved and it was lovely, and then after this horrible incident, everyone got on with their lives, and that was
so
great.
Like once the nasty man went away, it's all fine again.
But it is a good game. We have done nothing but shit on it for about 20 minutes, but it is actually a good game. And if you played Her Story and you did enjoy Her Story, you will find something here that you enjoy. Do you know what I mean? It is good. And if you've played this and you've not played Her Story, I'd highly recommend Her Story. It's just a more concise, more tight version of this. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, it really, really helps us out. It does a huge, huge amount for the exposure of the show. And while you're over there, if you could leave us a review as well, that really, really helps us out. Again, it does a huge amount for us, and thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, our game for this month is Thomas Was Alone. This is a game by Mike Bithell, and we will also be doing Volume after this as well. So that will be 2 Mike Bithell games back to back, similarly to what we've just done with Sam Barlow. So I'm not sure if there's any deals on that. Probably not. You can get Thomas Was Alone very, very cheap. Like, very cheap indeed. I think I probably picked it up for a few quid. It's really not a very long game either. What did we say it was? About 4 or 5 hours?
3 hours we read, actually.
Oh, 3 hours. There you go. Short. There you go. Short as that. But something I've been really looking forward to playing for a while. Mike Bithell is a top developer. Got a really, really good reputation in the indie scene. And this will actually be my first Mike Bithell game, so I'm very excited.
Nice one, yeah. I've played a little bit of, or quite a lot of Volume, but really excited to get started with Thomas Was Alone as well. It's one of those games that's just always floating around. It's always mentioned when people are talking about good indie games, but it's time to get involved with it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And Volume will be next month, so you can replay that as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.